Welcome, everyone. Happy Wednesday to you. You are listening to the Scoreboard. Today's episode was recorded at an earlier time, but as of Wednesday, all the information is current. We're going to have a lot of fun with you here today. I know it might seem like the sports world is slowing down a little bit right now. We're getting to the end of the NFL season. We're getting to bowl season in college football, but that just means all these winter sports are going to start picking up soon. Yesterday, we spent a bit of time talking about high school basketball. We might talk a little more high school basketball today, as well as NBA basketball. I definitely want to go over what happened yesterday, because yesterday we had two Leagues Cup games. The Orlando Magic played the Milwaukee Bucks. The Oklahoma City Thunder played the Dallas Mavericks. And then later on tonight, we have two more in-season Cup games. The Hawks and the Knicks, the Warriors and the Rockets. Last night, we had also some NHL action. Hockey was in full swing. Also, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we are getting very close. I know we talked about it a little bit, but we are very close to the bowl games beginning. Yeah, I know. It seems a little crazy to think that it's right around the corner, but this Saturday, Jackson State, South Carolina State in the Cricket Celebration Bowl, and then South Alabama and Western Michigan in the IS4S Salute to Veterans Bowl. There are a lot of bowls. Also on Saturday, the Army-Navy game at 3 o'clock. That is one of the bigger rivalries, I'd say, one of the more fun weekends in college football. So we are getting close to those bowl games beginning not this weekend, but next weekend. Friday night, we have Indiana Notre Dame. And then Saturday, you have the full slate of college football playoff first round games. SMU Penn State, Clemson Texas, Tennessee Ohio State. There's also some MLB news. Yesterday, we spent quite a bit of time talking about Juan Soto and the absolutely absorbent contract that he signed, worth over $750 million. None of it was deferred either. Like, this contract, he's going to be getting it in the 15 years that he plays. Steve Cohen, man, whew. He doesn't care. He wants to bring a championship to the Mets. He wants to be the hero that the Mets franchise hasn't had for forever. We also have some news regarding the World Cup. Yes, the World Cup. You heard me correctly. We have new host cities for 2023 and 2024. I know that there's been a lot of questions as to should FIFA go to Saudi Arabia to have these games. We'll see. I will let you know a little bit later on. Maybe we'll talk about that. But I also want to talk about the basketball world, especially in high school sports, because last night we had a few games take place. Statesville High School was in action last night. They were playing Huff High School, and it was a home game for Statesville. They end up getting the win in this one, a non-conference game between a tough opponent. 58-53 was the final score in this one, as Statesville moves to 2-3 on the season. They have a couple of days off until their next game, which will be this Friday against Lake Norman High School, another home game for Statesville. There were other teams in our area that were in action last night, including West Iredell High School. Now, West Iredell has had an incredible start to their season, 5-1 going into last night's game. They took on Wilkes Central, who they lost to earlier in the year, 88-82, a very close game there. Well, in the revenge game, West Iredell comes out victorious. Final score 94-65. Yeah, that was not all that close of a game, honestly. But West Iredell 6 1 to start the year. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. As you compare last year and even the year before, in 2022-2023, West Iredell only had 3 wins on the season. Last year, they had 2 wins on the season. So in a span of 2 years, they only picked up 5 wins. Now this year, they have already surpassed that win total with 6 wins to start the year. They've won 6 of their first 7. So a big congratulations to West Iredell. West Iredell is looking like the best team in our area right now, at least in the northern Iredell area. You know, you got Leyton Orman, who's put together a really good start to their season. So has Mooresville High School. So there are a lot of good schools in the area. And the basketball season is still very young. Another school that had a game last night was North Iredell. They came into that game 2-3 on the year, having a little bit of a rough patch early in the season here. They were on the road against East Surrey High School, and unfortunately for North Iredell, they dropped this one 48-45. Very close, low-scoring game, but East Surrey was able to come out victorious in this one, dropping North Iredell to 2-4 on the year. Definitely a tough start to the year for North Iredell. And when you look at what they were able to do last year, just a few games below 500, they got to be looking to improve on that. And a 2-4 start to the year before we get into conference play, it's a tough pill to swallow. We are very close to those conference games beginning. A couple of schools have already played one here, one there. But for the most part, these conference games are going to pick up heavy as we come back from the new year. North Iredell is going to play a conference game before that, actually, which is definitely interesting. Their first conference game will be on the road against Ford High School about 9 days from now. So conference play is right around the corner. Win that conference and you're going to have a good bid into the playoff bracket. We got a lot of things left for you here on the scoreboard today. I do want to talk a lot about some of the news that has been breaking over the last few days. There was some signings that happened in Major League Baseball that I definitely think, besides just Juan Soto, which obviously everybody had their eyes on Juan Soto, where's he going to go and how much money he was going to sign for. He was the prize of this year's free agency, but there are other teams that are making moves and other players that are being signed. So hang tight with us through the first commercial break of the day. You're listening to The Scoreboard, and we're back after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to The Scoreboard. Once again, just as a general reminder to you, ladies and gentlemen, today, this episode was recorded at an earlier time. We are not live today. This is current information, though, as of Wednesday, December 11th. So just so you know, once again, yesterday we were live. It was a lot of fun being live again, but today we have recorded this segment earlier in the day, so hopefully everything that I'm telling you is current, but there's always the possibility of breaking news happening between now and 5 p.m. I am recording this before noon. A lot of time left for news to break, and my biggest fear sometimes with recording these so early in the day is that I'll talk about something that could be happening or might happen, or there's rumors, and then by time the show airs, it's either already happened or it's not going to happen anymore, and it's no longer a story. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We're going to try to keep things as general as possible today, just to keep everything fresh and accurate. That's my biggest concern. But I do have some breaking news today. This was announced about an hour ago. Saudi Arabia to host the World Cup in 2023, and 6 countries will host the World Cup in 2030. So officially, the 2034 World Cup will be held in Saudi Arabia. The 2023 World Cup will be held across Morocco, Portugal, and Spain, with 3 one-off matches being held in 3 South American countries. The logistics of that are going to be something. If you have you got to go to South America for one game when everything else is in South Europe, Northern Africa, it's going to be interesting. Saudi Arabia apparently was the only bidder for the 2023 edition of the tournament. Now, there's been a lot of talk about human rights violations in Saudi Arabia. A lot of global human rights organizations have warned that the World Cup should not go to Saudi Arabia because of, quote, unimaginable human costs. Now, if you remember when we had the World Cup in Qatar, there was a lot of talk about the conditions for the workers that were building the stadiums for the World Cup, and a lot of controversy with that. Now, it probably didn't really resonate all that well once the World Cup started, because everybody was focused on what's going on in front of them rather than how did we get to this position. So just a little bit of an update for you here. Saudi Arabia will be hosting the 2034 World Cup, about 9.5 years away from that. So the report about 2023, I'm a little bit more interested in that. I want to know why they have 3 South American countries hosting one match. Doesn't really make sense to me. So those 3 countries, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina. Those countries were trying to get a bid to host the World Cup, but they didn't get it. So I guess FIFA decided to give them a couple of games. By the way, all of the host nations will automatically get an entry to the 48-team tournament. It was newly expanded, and it will be 48 teams now. Remember, the next World Cup is going to be held in Canada, the US, and Mexico, which means those 3 countries have an automatic bid to the World Cup. It was like the other World Cup we had in Qatar, where they got an automatic bid. Everywhere that hosts gets an automatic bid into the World Cup, which honestly I think is pretty cool and definitely something that they should continue to do. Moving on from that, though, there's a little bit of news that I want to speak of with you guys, including some MLB news from last night. Now, the winter meetings are going on for baseball, so there are teams talking to players right now at those winter meetings, and there have been a few signings. One of them being left-hander Max Fried. Max goes to the New York Yankees on an 8-year, $218 million contract pending his physical. This is the largest guarantee in baseball history for a left-handed pitcher. All you fellow lefties out there, there's hope for you. You could at least make $250 million. I don't know about 3/4 like Juan Soto. And there's a lot of talk about Juan Soto. Does he deserve the amount of money that he was given? And to be honest with you, I don't know if it matters if he deserved it or not. You have an owner who at all costs wants to bring a World Series to the New York Mets. I would say to New York, but well, I guess you could bring a World Series back, bring a championship back to New York. They are going through it. The last time one of the 4 major sports had a New York City champion, it was the New York Giants in 2012 when they beat the Patriots for the second time. So the city of New York, I know they got the Liberty over there, who WNBA champions. I believe it was NYCFC who won the MLS championship a few years ago. This year it was LA again, the LA Galaxy getting another MLS title, one of the most dominant MLS franchises there is. But he's just looking to bring a championship to New York. And signing these players to these deals, you have a good chance of doing that. Juan Soto played in 157 games this year for the New York Yankees. He walked 129 times, 41 home runs on the year, struck out 119 times, which actually is not all that bad. It's less than once a game, but his batting average was under 300. He was batting .288, and Juan Soto is not a great outfielder. He's average. He's just a decent guy out there who's serviceable to play right field. Does that scream $765 million? Not really, not in my eyes. But that's where contracts are going in Major League Baseball. And they weren't the only team to offer Soto north of $700 million. It was the Yankees in there as well, the Red Sox, the Dodgers. I don't understand how the Dodgers were going to sign him to that massive contract with what they have going on with Ohtani. I mean, maybe with Ohtani deferring his contract, it helps. It does help. But I don't know. You can't bring another massive contract like that to the organization. The Mets now, obviously, they have the biggest payroll in baseball. They spend 102% of the revenue that they get. Yeah, Cohen loses money now on the Mets. Interesting. Very interesting if you ask me. Juan Soto is a New York Met. And as we just talked about, we have a pitcher signing Max Fried to the New York Yankees. That is pretty much their not second option because they don't play the same position, Soto and Fried. But it was the contingency plan to go get more pitching for the New York Yankees. We have some interest with Chris Martin, the veteran, 38 years old, played in 45 games with the Red Sox. Vlad Guerrero Jr., we heard a little bit of talking during the season about could he be moved as well, Vlad Guerrero. And, he's going to be a free agent next year. Apparently, they are not close to getting a deal done. I wouldn't be surprised if this year, if the Blue Jays aren't going to get him signed to a long-term contract, trade him. You don't want to lose him for nothing. We see that happen. We've talked about it in the past. Losing a player, that's what the Angels did with Shohei Ohtani, right? They could have traded him. They weren't going to make the playoffs, but instead they let his contract lapse and the Dodgers came in and signed him. The Angels get absolutely nothing to show for having Shohei Ohtani on their team. Nolan Arenado and Kyle Tucker are also being named in some trade talks. The biggest team that's being talked about with them are the New York Yankees. I would not be surprised if the Yankees make a lot of noise again this year. Remember last year they made a lot of noise with the Juan Soto trade. This year they tried to sign Soto. Apparently the straw that broke the camel's back was the fact that they did not offer him a free suite in the stadium for his family, which is a joke. We talked about that yesterday. I'm not going to get back into that today. But I expect the Yankees to make a lot of moves. Now, I would also expect to see a lot of trades. We've already seen one as the Blue Jays acquire 3-time Gold Glove Award winning second baseman Andrés Giménez from the Cleveland Guardians. That's not going to be the only piece that falls here in the near future. I think we are about to see a big buzz of signings, trades as the winter meetings go on. So hopefully nothing crazy happens between now and 5 o'clock and we can talk about it fresh tomorrow. But if so, we'll talk about it tomorrow no matter what. I promise. We're at the halfway point of the program here today, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Scoreboard. Segment number 3, we are past the halfway mark on the program today. getting a little bit of discussions in. You know, there's really, there were a few NBA games last night. There's really, we're in a waiting period right now in sports. Things are going on in basketball, yes, but the big sport like football, you know, everybody's favorite fall and winter sport. We got to wait until tomorrow for football. We have Thursday night football coming up tomorrow night. Thursday night football has been better this year. I know we ragged on it a lot at the beginning of the year, but we've had a couple of good games here recently. Now, this Thursday, we have the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. That is a massive, massive game for the NFC West. Now, I don't know if the 49ers are going to make the playoffs or not. They definitely need to get healthy. Deebo Samuel being healthy is huge, but he has been struggling. I don't know if anybody is on social media a lot, but this is absolutely hilarious what I saw last night. Deebo Samuel tweeted, "Not struggling at all, just not getting the ball," with about 10 exclamation points after that. And if you've been on Twitter or X recently, you know about, excuse me. If you've been on Twitter or X recently, you know about the community notes, right? We've heard about it. It's a way to fact check and whatnot. There is a community note on this tweet. The note reads, "He leads the team in drops. He is struggling." And then Deebo promptly deleted the tweet. That's funny. I don't care how you slice it. That is funny. Deebo got bodied by the community notes on Twitter. Man. Well, we're going to move on from football. But like I said, tomorrow night, Thursday night football, we'll talk more about what we have for Thursday night football and the implications of who wins. We'll do that tomorrow. But right now, I want to get into the NBA, where we are in the NBA Cup. The NBA in-season Cup. We had 2 games last night. The Mavericks played Oklahoma City, and the Bucks played the Magic. I apologize. They are not the Buccaneers. They are the Milwaukee Bucks. Big difference. Big difference. Oklahoma City Thunder, Milwaukee Bucks move on to the semifinals. Now, I find this interesting. The Bucks are the only team in this year's NBA Cup who was also in the NBA Cup last year. And if you remember, they got eliminated last year in the semifinals, which is where they are now. Semifinals and finals will take place in Las Vegas. So the remaining schedule for the NBA in-season Cup, we have 2 games tonight. First game at 7 o'clock, it'll be the Atlanta Hawks visiting the New York Knicks. It is going to be at MSG. And then you have the Western matchup at 9:30. It'll be the Golden State Warriors taking on the Houston Rockets. Now, things are a little bit different this year than last year with the in-season tournament. I find it interesting to compare last year's participants to this year's participants. When you look at the standings especially, the Atlanta Hawks are the lowest ranked team that is in the in-season Cup. And the Hawks are 13-12. They still have a winning record. But you have the Orlando Magic in there as well. The Milwaukee Bucks at 6 in the East. Last year, we had a couple of teams, including the Lakers, who ended up winning it all, who were not having a good regular season up to that point. I believe when the Lakers made it, they were fighting for the last play-in spot. Now, it's still early in the year. We are about a quarter of the way done with the season now. And currently, the worst team in that in-season Cup is the Atlanta Hawks, the 7 seed in the East. So it seems like the cream rising to the top here in this year's version of the in-season tournament of the NBA Cup, whatever you want to call it. I call it an in-season tournament because that's what it is. And that's how they marketed it last year. And that's where we find ourselves, is waiting for the in-season cup to continue. So we have 2 games later on tonight. Knicks and Hawks, Rockets, Warriors. Winners move on to the semifinals. As far as the regular NBA standings go, not all that much has changed. Still have the Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder atop the East and the West. For the Charlotte Hornets, their last game was a win against the Pacers, where they broke a little bit of a losing streak. The Hornets sit 13th in the East. Their next game coming up on Friday, it'll be against the Chicago Bulls. Things are interesting with the Hornets because it feels like we're seeing players improve. Brandon Miller is having a good year. We already know LaMelo Ball signed to that massive contract. He's going to be around for a while. But Brandon Miller averaging 22, 5, and 3 so far this year. We still need another piece. Maybe it would be beneficial if the Hornets don't end up doing well this year and they get another lottery pick and maybe they win the lottery. If they win the lottery, they're getting Cooper Flagg. We already know that. Cooper Flagg is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft this year. If you've been watching him play with Duke this year, amazing. He's great. So that's an option. The other option is what we're looking for from the Panthers this year is just improvement. Be a little bit better than last year and don't really worry about the draft pick. Win some games, be in games, be in close games, but win some and compete. I think the Hornets need to continue to lose because I just find it a hard time believing that A-, B+ type free agent is going to want to sign with the Hornets right now. What have they done in the past? It's a failing organization right now. You know, Michael Jordan was the owner of the team and he sold it, right? So they're kind of still trying to find a direction here. I don't know. It's a weird situation that the Hornets find themselves in. I am going to stay by the thought process of try to get a lottery pick again this year. I mean, don't tank. We don't want to see you not trying, but just by playing the games, I believe that the Hornets are going to end up out of the play-in tournament this year. Now, they're close. That's the thing, is they're not that far back from being in the play-in tournament. They are only 3 games out. At 7-17, the Chicago Bulls, who they play on Friday, are the last team in at 10-15. So there is still a chance. And a quarter of the way through the season, they find themselves in a pretty good spot. We got to go to our final commercial break of the program, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. We still got quite a bit to talk about today on the scoreboard. We're going to get into a little bit of news when we come back. And then, as we always do, this day in sports history. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. And welcome back. You are listening to the Scoreboard. A reminder for you. This episode has been recorded earlier in the day. I am not live. Unfortunately, I can't take your phone calls. Hopefully, all this information is still relevant. I'm sure it will be. We haven't really talked about all that much that could change. We got a lot of news in today. It's a big news day, and we're actually going to continue on the path of news here in this final segment. So, starting off with an announcement earlier today from the NFL. The NFL will play a regular season in Berlin for the first time next season. Now, it's not the first time that they'll go to Germany, but the regular season games have been played in Munich and Frankfurt. This is the first time that the NFL will go to Berlin. and the game will be played at Olympic Stadium. It's going to be the 5th regular season game played in Germany. Now, it's not the first time that they are playing in Olympic Stadium. From 1990 to 1994, the NFL played 5 American Bowl games at Olympic Stadium. They also had the Berlin Thunder of the NFL Europe League from 2003 to 2007. Beginning next season, the NFL can schedule up to 8 international regular season games per season. They have already announced that it will play 2 games at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London and 1 in Madrid at Santiago Stadium. So that's 3, plus Germany is 4, so we still got 2 more spots for international games next season. More football news for you. This one is college related and transfer portal related. Darian Mensah, the quarterback for Tulane, who brought Tulane to the AAC championship game, has entered the portal and has chosen the Duke Blue Devils. Mensah is the top-rated transfer in the portal this year, and we need portal rules to change. We really do. It needs to be after the national championship game. It needs to be after all the bowl games are played. I think it's insane that the transfer portal is during bowl games. It doesn't make sense to me. But then again, I've said it multiple times, we are still in the Wild West of the transfer portal, of NIL, and obviously of the college football 12-team playoff. So things will change. It's going to take a little bit of time for it to change. But for now, we still have to deal with the transfer portal being open during bowl season. And I personally, I'm just not a fan of that. I think it needs to stay after, or not stay because it's never been. It needs to go to after the national championship is handed out. That's just my opinion. Duke lost their starting quarterback, Malik Murphy. He transferred out after the 9-3 season that they had. So bringing in a top-rated transfer quarterback, he's a redshirt freshman. He's going to have 3 years remaining of eligibility. Hey, maybe we see Duke in an ACC championship game with a chance to go to the college football playoff. Now, that's this year. Next year, the rules might change. And I've been hearing a lot of rumbling about we're not going to give a bye to the conference champions. Maybe the conference champions, the top 5 highest ranked conference champions, get a bid to the playoffs, but then they would be seeded based on the rankings. So instead of the 4 highest rated conference champions getting a bye, just the 4 highest ranked teams get a bye. Which, I don't know which one I prefer. I do like seeing multiple conferences represented in the quarterfinals. I think that is good, because if you go to the 4 highest ranked teams getting the byes, there's a chance it's just going to be the SEC and the Big Ten, which is what it was this year. And I don't know, me personally, I'd like to see variety, parity. I know everybody's saying, oh, the ACC and the Big 12 are nowhere near as good as the Big 10 and the ACC. That's going to change. It is, because of the transfer portal, because of NIL. The talent level in college football is going to be spread out. And we're already seeing this. Only one undefeated team this year in Oregon. By the way, in their first year in the Big 10. That's a great feat for Oregon. But we're going to see the talent level get spread out in college football, and we're going to see more teams come out as competitive. I still think it should be the same way. I don't think they should change it, but that's just my opinion. I expect that they'll change it. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the NFL and the NBA putting out a memo to make sure your house is secure? It was a primetime game for the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce both had their homes broken into. Well, after the Monday night game, or I guess during the Monday night game on Monday, Joe Burrow's house, the quarterback for the Bengals, was broken into and burglarized. Man, it's an epidemic right now in the U.S. Somebody who is employed by Burrow arrived at the home Monday night to find a shattered bedroom window and the home being in disarray. The person then called 911. I don't know what it is about what's going on with pro athletes and their houses getting broken into. Remember, it was Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, like I talked about back in October. In the NBA, it was Bobby Portis on November 2nd who had his home broken into. And then Mike Connolly had his home broken into in September. Man, I don't know what we can do to stop these break-ins of the pro athletes during their games. Maybe they have to hire security. You know what? They're making millions of dollars. Hire some security. Whatever. Let's see. One more piece of news here. The Buffalo Bills, for the first time ever, have added 10 non-controlling minority owners to the team's ownership group in a vote that was approved by the NFL. This group includes Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, two NBA legends and Hall of Famers at that. It is the first time ever that the Bills franchise has had people buy into the team as a minority owner. Not really sure what their role is going to be. Could just be that they wanted to make the investment. And the Pagulas were like, yeah, sure, why not? We love basketball. And here we are. So we have some new minority owners of the Buffalo Bills. By the way, the Bills are going to have a new stadium in a couple of years. And I'm so happy that they decided to make it an outdoor stadium. Now, in a way, like the fans, I think they said 70 or 65% of the fans are going to be covered, but the field is going to be open air. Love it. Love it. Because remember what happened a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo? It snowed and we got a snow game, a real like full length of the game snow game. It was awesome. So hopefully we get more of that from Buffalo. I don't want the AFC North to start building domes. I don't want the AFC East to start building domes. Come on, let's keep the elements part of the game. That's just my opinion. As we head to the end of the program today, let's go ahead and talk about some things that happened on this day in history. It was on this day in 2021 that Alabama quarterback and current Panthers quarterback Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy. Yes, that was on this day, 2021. It was also on this day in 2022 that Brock Purdy was a starter for the 49ers, and he gets his first career win and start. His first career start and his first career win on this day 2 years ago against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm sure you remember this one from 2009. Tiger Woods announced an indefinite leave from professional golf to focus on his marriage after the issues that he went through. We'll put it like that. That's about the last way I could put it. 1981, former world heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali's 61st and final fight. He lost to Trevor Berbick by unanimous decision in 10 rounds. That was on this day in 1981. And as I like to do, we'll talk about the first thing on the list. 1866. It was the first ever yacht race across the Atlantic Ocean. They left Sandy Hook for the Sicily Isles, and the Henrietta, with New York playboy Gordon Bennett on board, won the race. How about that? A yacht race across the Atlantic. Thanks everyone for tuning into the Scoreboard today. I appreciate talking to each and every one of you. Hopefully soon I will be back live and be able to chat with you guys, comment anything you want on the Facebooks and whatnot, YouTube, all that fun stuff, and I'll be able to interact with you guys. That's it for the program today. You've been listening to the Scoreboard. Until tomorrow, have a great night, everyone.